Nim or Nimicree if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today is the last day of Shadowlands. It's over. At 6 p.m. tomorrow, we're at the Dragon Isles. Provided the queues are stable and there's not a DDoS and a few other factors, but a lot of that's outside of control of Blizzard. So, ideally, we're heading to the Dragon Isles tomorrow. It'll be a fantastic time. I can't wait to go. I do have a stats final that I have to do first, but I also have vacation for the week, so feeling good. Since this is the last day of Shadowlands, and effectively we're never going to get any new Shadowlands content, I figured I would give my final thoughts on Shadowlands as, you know, the good, the bad, the warts and all. Because Shadowlands was not my favorite expansion, but that doesn't mean that there weren't really good things that happened in it. So let's do that, and then from there, we'll have a good time, and I'll see you in the Dragon Isles. Without further ado, let's get started. Oribos, our capital city, the hub. How does it compare to Borealis, Dazalor, any other capital cities, such as Dalaran on the islands, or Dalaran when it's floating and it's cold? How does it compare? Honestly, I liked Oribos. I thought Oribos was good. It was well designed. Everything, you know, has its halls and shapes. And I liked the caretakers, right? The candle people. I enjoyed the caretakers, and meeting the Arbiter for the first time was really cool. Oribos, by and large, I'm gonna give like a 7 out of 10. While it's really cool, architecture is great. It's not alive. Like it doesn't seem like it's alive, and I guess that makes sense. I probably shouldn't dock it because this is the literal afterlife, but there's not a vibrancy that happens there. With one exception, the Broker's Den. There's a little bit of cool interaction that can go on there, but outside of that, I mean, you have guards that just stand around and do nothing. You go up to the Arbiter does nothing. Eventually, the Arbiter's your buddy. It's fine. So I like a 7 out of 10. There's nothing really wrong here. Passing grade, passing marks all around, but nothing that really is like, wow, all right, this is cool, this is flavorful. Next, let's move on to Bastion. And so, with Bastion, we begin our journey into the Shadowlands proper. I loved Bastion. It was my favorite zone in all of Shadowlands, with Zereth Mortis being my second favorite. I liked the Kyrian, my favorite Covenant. We'll get into Covenants more a little later. They'll have their own section. But I loved Bastion. It was my favorite. The pastoral, afterlife, fields, and I don't know, I guess what do you call this, like a tundra almost? It's grasslands. I really enjoyed it. I liked the idea of the Forsworn, how they were branching out against the path, and they made good points, but they also had one of the greatest failures in entire Warcraft history, which is Devos elevating Uther, and then them going to grab Arthas and cast him into the maw before being judged. Literally proving the Kyrian point of, there is a reason why we strip a lot of human emotions from ourselves before we do this job, so that we can do this job. Otherwise, the Shadowlands doesn't function as it's supposed to. Now, of course, what we do know from background, that Sire Denathrius and the Jailer were working on getting as many souls to the maw as possible, so it's not really, it's not Uther's fault. Uther was a pawn in this, because Uther, you see in that cinematic, where, like, you see the rune blade wound. The mark of the maw is still on him, and he's trying to get over it, but he can still feel it, and it takes time. So I like the Kyrian the most. Out of all of the Covenants, I like Bastion the most. This was great, but I also mained a paladin for a long time. I'm maining a holy priest now, which is essentially a working from home paladin. You know, instead of putting on your dress up armor and ready to go, you just work from home in your PJs and your night robes. So, you know, it's not too bad. But yes, this was a great place. Also, Rising Glory was an easy herb to farm and gave you decent amounts of was useful for a lot of various things. The invasion for the Necrotic Wake was fantastic. I didn't really, some of the stuff was okay, but I liked that there were areas that were controlled by the Forsworn and areas that weren't controlled by the Forsworn. So that was a good thing. Bastion, honestly, my favorite zone, and I like it. I wouldn't want to have a whole expansion of Bastion. Like, I feel like we had a lot of with Mists of Pandaria. Like, the first two zones were really pretty samey. I mean, outside of having, I guess, the slight aesthetic differences, but they were pretty samey. But still, though, big statues, lots of holy people's afterlives, those who are called to service. I love Bastion, and I think this was a great zone. Now, let's move on to those undead warriors who never stop training to become stronger to defend the Shadowlands from any incursions. Maldraxxus and the Necrolords. The first time you enter Maldraxxus, you fly in, and you're actually flown into the back of a gladiatorial arena, and you get to fight your way through and get out. It's a great entrance to a zone that's all about military combat and being strong. And when you pull up the map, you can see, you know, the House of Eyes is about spying. The House of Rituals is about necromantic rituals making things stronger. The House of Plagues, well, technically they should be about creating these strong plagues and virulent weapons in order to prevent people from taking over the Shadowlands or attacking their enemies. Of course, the Seat of the Primus, where, hey, that's the ruler of Maldraxxus, House of the Chosen, one-on-one combat. Get stronger. And then, of course, the House of the Constructs. We can... You're not as strong as you want to be? Great. We can build you that way. This implies a total approach to warfare. I really like this place. I served in the Marine Corps, so I'm a veteran. And I like this, how this, it's not just, oh, we're going to be strong. It's like, no, there's subterfuge, and there's poison, and there's things, and it's a total war mentality. The music in the background, too, this very, you know, a very heavy, oppressive music, lends itself to, this is a serious place. If you're here, this is a serious place. You need to understand, this is a serious place. I liked Maldraxxus a lot. It wasn't my favorite zone, as that was Bastion, but this might be my third favorite. Next to Zereth, I liked Zereth Mortis. It gave me very heavy Wildstar vibes. I liked the Theater of Pain, where you could fight champions in the arena the entire time. I thought that was really cool. This character is a Necrolord as a Covenant. So, being that they're a Necrolord, I can go into the Covenant Hall, and I like the Seat of the Primus. I thought it was cool, because before you just get the blade, and you go out here, and you get a bunch of things. But this was a cool place. Again, it's very dark and oppressive and undead, but everybody here is already acclimated to it. So if you're not down with the cause, you're going to feel out of place. But as I'm a Necrolord, I'm down with the cause. So it's not too bad for me. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. Of course, you have your merchants and everything. I enjoyed Maldraxxus a lot. I like the storyline. I like the House of the Plagues. I like the fact that Kel'Zathod was here and later became a villain, because we're like, yeah, no shit. Kel'Zathod, you're a villain. I get it. Has anybody taken more L's than Kel'Zathod? Probably not. But hopefully he never comes back, because we've killed him a couple of times, and then in the afterlife, like, Kel'Zathod, go away, you're done. No more phylactery for you. You're done, you're done, you're done, you're done, you're done. No more of that. But still, this was a cool place. Seeing the Margraves, going to the House of the Chosen, and oh yeah, let's remember one of the best storylines in the game. Actually, two of the best storylines in the game come here. Alexandros Morgraine and Draka. Right? Alexandros Morgraine, former Ashbringer, former horseman, asks, why was I not sent to Bastion? I was a paladin. I was the Ashbringer. And his question's answered, well, we would strip you of what made you. He's like, well, no, I draw strength from that. My family, my friends, my death. I draw strength from that. And it's like, exactly. That's why you're in Maldraxxus. It was great. Getting ready to freeing Alexandros Morgraine from the Maw is like, oh, that's real. Because I remember all the way back in Vanilla and even classic Morladrum, his undead corpse walking around Westfall in that manor, or not Westfall, Darkshore, Duskwood. I know my zones. I swear I know my zones. It's been a while since I played Alliance. But walking around and being like, whoa, he would just kill you. He'd give you a really good two-handed sword, don't get me wrong. It was great, but it was really cool to rescue him from the Maw. I was a fan. And, you know, again, the zone is very sparse and tough. And I like that, there's a lot of, there's each zone has each sub-zone has its own feel. Like, we're going to go fly over to the House of Plagues, right? Right now, we're at the Theater of Pain, in between the House of Chosen and the Seat of the Primus. But we're going to go fly over to the House of Plagues. And if you look in the distance right now, you can actually see plague clouds just over these mushrooms. And then if you go into Plaguefall, obviously you get to see more. We're not going to go into Plaguefall proper. We'll fly over and see. But this right here makes sense, because remember, before you got to the Shadowlands, the House of Plagues had a problem, and you actually have to kill one of their Margraves. And before you got to the Shadowlands, the House of Eyes was destroyed, but not everybody died. And why were those things destroyed? Well, because they were the things that could pose a threat to the alliance between the Maldraxxus and Sire Denathrius. And as you can see, all this is all just plague. And later on, actually, if you play through the story, you actually come back to Maldraxxus if you're a Horde member, and you can help Kalia Menethil, which is nice. I like Maldraxxus a lot. It's a very thematically appropriate zone. The art team in World of Warcraft always, and I mean always, knocks it out of the park. With Maldraxxus fully discussed, let's talk about my least favorite zone, outside of the mall, Ardenweald. Ardenweald. This place had the best pre-launch cinematic, with Ursoc being sacrificed, and one of the Grove Tenders giving the anima to the Winter Queen so that the Shadowlands can continue to thrive. I remember fighting Ursoc, and it shows the moment of rage where he's blinded by the nightmare, and asked to give up a little bit for the forest. It was a big deal. I came into Ardenweald with high hopes, and I've never really been attracted to any of the nature classes, your druids, your shamans, and to a lesser extent your hunters. But this was a nice zone. I just didn't resonate with the story. Yes, I liked the Winter Queen. Yes, I felt the Night Warrior was cool. Yes, seeing Ysera again was awesome, because I remember seeing Ysera for the last time, and it's like, damn it. Like, seeing that red gem and Nightmare and being like, oh, man, there goes one of our former aspects. It was sad. And the music in the background of this is a very kind of haunting melody, and I really like it. But the Ardenweald storyline didn't really get to me. It didn't speak to me. I know you had to stop the Gorham, and you had to stop the people in the masks, and you had to stop that big worm from Tredova from in mists from eating seeds and becoming, I guess, leading the Gorham up and trying to fix the anima stuff. But Ardenweald is very pretty, and the music is very good, but the storyline just did not resonate with me. Not once. Well, maybe a couple of times, but like it's not like Bastion spoke to me. Like, yeah, I'm here, I get it, I got it. Maldraxxus at a level spoke to me. I understand why people are doing this. Ardenweald just felt it didn't resonate. That doesn't mean it's not a bad zone, and in fact, it's some of the prettiest areas in all. Like, look at this. Look at this. This is fantastic. It's definitely, each zone has a theme. So I would say that while it's not my favorite zone by any means, it is a very good zone, and the questing in it wasn't too painful, especially again as you can fly. That was, once you got Pathfinder, everything was fine. We had these little treasures on the outside of stuff. It was like mountains surrounding a forest. I really liked it. I actually went over here the other day, and it was fun. It was good. I got to see some just a real isolated area, and I was like, oh, I wish there was something over there. I mean, there might be if you do quest lines and things. I didn't really play through the Night Fae. I got my Night Fae character to 80 renown in Zereth Mortis, and was like, I'm done with this. I don't care. It was a druid. It was a restoration druid. Convoke the spirits. Oh, Convoke the Spirits is so powerful. So good. Though, I will say that where was it? It was Hiberner Hollow. Yeah, Hiberner Hollow was a place that I remember out of here, because I got to see one of the big bear spirits, Dro something, and actually talk to them and get quests and do things. And I like that. You got to go down. It was a real big zone. I think it was probably my favorite part of this entire zone let's head to Hiberno Hollow real quick. Because anybody who's Night Fae will know, like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, I know exactly where you are. And it's a great place. Yeah, we go down into here. And from here, when you first get here, there's a whole bunch of quests taking in different directions, of course, breadcrumbs and things. But this, you know, where the souls get reborn into the Shadowlands, it's an amazing time. That's why they protect these soul pods. So it's very important. But this area might be one of the most tranquil in the entire game. I really like it. Yeah, Droman Aloth. I didn't do all the quests on this character. I got Lore Master on my Paladin. But yeah, look at this. Holes and everything's great. And I believe that's the Sigil of the Night Fae, if I'm not mistaken. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is. It's the Sigil of the Night Fae. This place is wonderful. This entire zone was actually really well done. It just didn't speak to me. So no shade there. I'm gonna avoid rating it because I think that, you know, well, let's not avoid rating it. I'll say that it's, you know, for me it's a 6. It's a 6 out of 10. If it resonated with me, I could easily see this being, you know, an 8 or 9 without any trouble, if not higher. On to our final story area of the Shadowlands proper, at least the first patch, and that's Revendreth, a place where sinners go to be punished before their final punishment, if they're lucky. Revendreth. I liked Revendreth a lot. These zones, all of them, you may hear like, well, I like. That's because the initial design of them are all really cool. The art team, again, knocks it out of the park. Clunk, just absolutely. But the fact that all of them were kind of vampires was a plus in my book. I'm not a huge vampire stan, but I like this. It's a very gothic feel. And the fact that you get to see, at least in the pre-release, you get to see, you know, our old workhorses are being fine. And then Sire Denathrius casts somebody out in the sunlight, and they're out in the Ember Ward. And you get to visit the Ember Ward. Oh, this is great. And while this is all going on, there's a rebellion that Sire Denathrius knows is fomenting and doesn't care. The best villain in this expansion was Sire D. But he just doesn't care, and you can see that there's a whole lot of he was the person who created the Revendreth. And you can buy everything here is dark and gothic and oppressive. Just especially you go down to the Enmire or the Ember Ward where you see people having problems. There's a couple of dungeons. It's great. I really loved Revendreth. It's not my favorite again. But it spoke to me in a way that Ardenweald didn't, and the other 3 zones did. I get this purpose. I understand this viscerally. Whereas Nature and Rebirth, well, I don't, because as a human, I only have 1 life. And World of Warcraft is taking a lot of it. The fact that there are nobles and dredgers, and the fact that the dredgers, when you fight them in the story as you're leveling, they'll be like, you know, I don't want to do this, but the boss, and it's like, dredgers, I get it. I'm with you. I understand. It's like, so I always tried to kill the Venthyr. I tried to kill the Venthyr first, so that I wouldn't have to kill the dredgers. Because the dredgers, they say like, I don't really want to do this. It's the boss, you know. It's the boss. Disguising yourself as a servant was always a fun quest. I enjoyed that. Yeah, this place was great. This place was absolutely great. So now, I think when the one last thing I do want to mention on this is the Halls of Atonement was interesting in the fact that it was an actual dungeon rep, right? Running the Halls of Atonement over and over and over and over and over again, you could eventually get exalted, and that would let you get a reagent that you needed to make cauldrons. An interesting choice, to say the least. And I like the fact that they had a dungeon rep. Did I think it awarded a little too slowly? Yes, I did. Absolutely. I thought it was a little too slow. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't a bad idea, and I hope that more of those things happen. I like the idea. I wish they'd go back to a tabard system, but they probably will never do that because of the fact that you need to have, with world quests and things like that. But yeah, I really love the Halls of Atonement. I'm actually flying around there now. Let's move on to my least favorite zone, the Maw, and then we'll start to discuss systems and events in a more general topic. The Maw, to its one credit that I can give it, has the most interesting way of accessing it ever. You literally have to plunge down to go there. That's why this is the only video that the only part of the video where you're seeing a loading screen, because I feel that that is important to show. I have to give them all credit for that. They really make it seem like it's a big deal. They really, like this is a bad place. You don't want to go here. You're not escaping. I mean, obviously you escape because you are a person. You're the Maw. You're the Maw Walker. But they want you. They want to make sure that, like, no. You don't understand. This is bad. Don't be here. Now, the Maw was an unfinished zone. My least favorite zone, mainly because of the first patch. You know, I couldn't mount in it. I had to deal with a lot of stuff. I had to deal with this Eye of the Jailer mechanic. Eventually that goes away, and it becomes a little more tolerable with Korthia. But it always seemed to want to take my time from me. Everything shackles, everything burns. And thematically, that's appropriate. I mean, you know, you go out here, you look at it, it's shackles and burns and things like that. It's not a bad idea. But it seemed bad. It didn't seem evil, right? Like, Arthas had malice. This is just, it's what it is. Hey, look, you guys don't meet our standards here. It is what it is. You know, we got to deal with this. As opposed to anything else. So I don't know. I will say that Maw had probably my favorite character in the entire Shadowlands expansion, and that is Venari. I loved Venari. Venari was great. Venari was fantastic. In fact, you know, we'll see. We'll do that. There's that. Boom. Work to do. Great. Fantastic. But Venari was my favorite character, because Venari was this enigmatic character that we don't know. I thought for sure she was going to be a raid boss at some point. I'm kind of glad she wasn't, because I like Venari a lot. And I zoned into Torghast because I can't talk about the Maw without talking about Torghast. Korthia, okay, City of Secrets, it eventually helped. It was led to Sanctum. Korthia was fine. There was a lot of cool things there, and you get to learn more about the Shadowlands and lore and such like that. But Torghast was a really cool idea. And then they kept nerfing it for players to where... And I don't mean nerf in the sense of making it easier for players. I mean, they kept taking away the ability of players to break stuff. They should have let players just go hog wild and break stuff. I also think that the fact that it was kind of mandatory, because that's how you got your legendary power stuff, made it annoying for certain classes. Because if you didn't get the right powers coming out there, out of the gate, you could have a bad time. So, I don't know. I will say Torghast, of course, being tied in the legendary system, I guess this is a good enough place to go into that. The fact that you could acquire and specifically target certain legendaries was a good thing. I think they should have been on, you know, the fact that, okay, well, you gotta wait a week. All right, well, doesn't feel great, but it's better than me running it for 10 weeks and not having a guaranteed chance at something. So I'll say that's passable with the legendary system. I didn't like the fact that Torghast, with the Rune Carver, you having to craft and buy things, because that just became a reason to sell tokens. But, well, again, some people may disagree. Well, you can craft it yourself. I mean, yeah, I guess I can. But blacksmithing, leatherworking, and tailoring are essentially useless outside of that, and I only need it for the one. Maybe the two, if something gets rebalanced. But what are you gonna do? Whereas alchemy and herbalism is constantly useful, because now my flasks have a 2-hour duration, and that actually equates to me saving quite a bit of gold. So, what are you gonna do? The Maw, though, overall, accomplished its purpose, I think, of being, again, I use the word oppressive a lot, and this is I agree. It's bad, it's evil, but it doesn't necessarily feel evil, right? It feels bad. The intro to it, you know, you're escaping from things, and that was good the first time. I enjoyed it the first time. But after that, it got kind of annoying, and I'm glad that you were able to skip it at 50 later on in the expansion. I just wish more was done with the Maw. It feels a lot unfinished. It feels like a zone for dailies. And that's it. Korthia did go a long way. Korthia did go a long way, even though a lot of dailies, because it gave a little bit of lore and structure to the Maw. But all in all, not my least favorite zone in the Shadowlands. While we're talking about zones in the Shadowlands, I guess this would be a good time to talk about my second favorite zone. Oh, okay, I guess I forgot that where it puts you there. I haven't been to the Maw in forever. And the reason is because I don't like it. And I don't have to go. And my main ground out so many resources to where I could basically gear an altar to with legendaries. Because I just didn't care. I'm like, I don't want to have to go do that stuff. We come to Zereth Mortis, right? Zereth Mortis was my second favorite zone behind Bastion. It really gives me Wild Star vibes as we walk through here. You'll see that. I like that everything is this proto, like, okay, this is the model that we're building on. Now let's give this one different types of feathers. Let's give this one different types of anything else. Let's do all this. It's a very, almost like a behind the scenes look. And I like that. I enjoyed that. You know, I wish this big orb would have done something more, but it didn't. I know that Ardenweald fires something into it and helps unlock the Sepulchre of the First Ones, where the Jailer goes to try to unmake reality, and okay. I'm with that, and we fight its guardians, and not a big deal. Like, I like that, it's great. But this zone, the dichotomy between the verdant and the desolate, you know, verdant forest and plain, desolate desert, was really cool. And the fact that the Jailer's forces essentially have taken over the desert area, you know, obviously makes it, you know, is thematically appropriate. Then you have the Enlightened and the Giro and the Automa. The Enlightened, of course, being the denizens here, the brokers. The Giro are these little elemental people, and of course, the Automa are your constructs. And I like that it's not necessarily real world physics. Everything just is kind of magic and floating and has this primeval feel. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Zereth Mortis. Pokepok was great. We love Pokepok. Pokepok is a fantastic little addition to this, and I hope that we get more people like them, or he makes cameos. I doubt he will, but we love you, Pokepok. We love you a great deal. You are so great, and you fly when I fly, and you walk. Yeah, like you roll along things like, oh, you got your little thing there. Oh, that's great. I love a little. Is that a little fly? It's a little flying gear. Oh, I love it. I love Pokepok. He was cool, or they were cool, or it was cool. Whatever, or she was cool. It doesn't matter. Pokepok was great. The Cypher console was a cool little progression thing, similar to the Titan Energy in 8.3, where you could get stuff from your visions and increase things. So I liked that a lot. Also, the fact that flying in Zereth Mortis, if you stayed up to date, wasn't too bad, right? You had to complete a series of meta achievements, and so it wasn't too bad. I think Zereth Mortis overall was a good end zone for Shadowlands. And Shadowlands, as we know, went through a pretty significant tumultuously development cycle. So, as it goes, Bastion, Zereth Mortis, Maldraxxus, Revendreth, Ardenweald, Maw. Let's talk about some systems now. When it comes to systems, we need to talk about expansion-specific features. So for a couple of expansions, and trend is ending in Dragonflight according to what the devs say, we've had systems called Borrowed Power, where you get, you know, a ring, a cloak, legendary artifact weapons, a necklace, and then, of course, the Shadowlands, legendaries, and conduits. So there's a whole bunch here. But let's talk about the Shadowlands systems, right? First, covenants. There are 4 covenants. The Kyrian, the Necrolords, the Night Fae, and the Venthyr. There are 4 main zones. I think you see where this is going. Bastion is the Kyrian, Maldraxxus is the Necrolords, Ardenweald is Night Fae, and Revendreth is the Venthyr. Once you join a covenant, you gain a covenant-specific ability. For me, Fleshcraft and Unholy Nova as a Holy Priest. Simple enough. I get some other things there. The original purpose of Covenants was to allow players to choose what fit them. Except that that didn't work at all. That did not work at all. Because people went with the most powerful choice, because that was what was needed in order to get some of this hard content down. Because we gotta remember that this expansion's raids were fairly difficult according to play metrics, right? Emerald Nightmare went down in less than a day on Mythic. Each Mythic raid in this game took multiple days. In some cases, I believe Sepulchre took like 3 weeks. So, it's a lot harder. And then, even after repeated nerfs, I remember like Mythic and Heroic Anduin was just absolutely wrecking guilds. Just wrecking guilds. So, the question you have to ask is, yeah, I want to be like a nature fire mage. Or I want to be an angelic death knight. Okay, those might work. That's pretty cool thematically. But why are you doing, 15% less DPS than your friend over there? Despite being the same gear. While there's solo player fantasy can be a thing, this is a massively multiplayer online game. Your actions affect other players if you decide to play with other players. That includes PvP, dungeons, raids, and even just group questing out in the world. So you gotta keep that in mind. That's why one of the reasons I hope that they allow for more cosmetic things, and later on they did allow for more cosmetic things, where you could pick up appearances and such, and things like that would stay in your bags. Or in your transmog tab. I think that, by and large, Covenants were a failure. Cool idea. Don't get me wrong. Cool idea. Because everybody has different goals and different things to keep the machinery of the afterlife working. But I think they were a failure. Part of that failure comes next to conduits. All right, so this screen, this screen, you have your soulbinds, which are people who you make a connection with, and they give you access to various abilities. And then you can choose which conduit to fill out. Generally, you're going to go with potency. Because it's hard to have enough utility to overcome a throughput increase. Especially as the way the game is designed. Just is. And then, of course, as you level them up, you can eventually empower them, and you can get extra cool stuff, and it's really, really cool. I like it. I like the conduit idea in theory, especially after they got rid of these little blue balls down there that were known as conduit energy. So for the longest time in Shadowlands, they wanted choices to be made meaningful. And Blizzard's definition of meaning is that it is hard to go back on that change or choice. It's hard to go back on that choice. So how do we do it? Well, we're going to limit your ability to make that choice. So if you want to, today's your PvP day to change your conduits. You may only have one left. In a couple of days, it'll be your PvE day because you can change your conduits. And you'll have to wait until change. Let's hope that your dungeon build and your raiding build don't have significantly different conduits. Because that's going to put you back. See the system? It's a problem. I'm glad they eventually scrapped it. There was a phrase that was sent around called pull the ripcord. I wish they had done it earlier. But I'm glad that they did it. There's such a thing as a sunk cost fallacy, and when you recognize that that's what you're experimenting with, that's what you're going with, it is a very fun thing to actually be done and be like, alright, we're done with this. And I think the conduits, on the whole, improved 100% once you didn't have to worry about conduit energy. So we've talked about Covenants. We've talked about Soulbinds. Now let's talk about legendary items. I think they're now removed, so I can't really get to them here. But if we look here, we gain the Memory of Unity, right? Memory of Unity, or other thing, or I have in here Memory of Pallid Command. the legendary system in this game, I see what they were trying to do. They were like, okay, you need an item. It's got to be of sufficient quality and special make in order to be able to hold this legendary effect. Okay, that makes sense. Because you can't just, grab a common sword off the rack. It's going to break under that magical power. It just can't hold it all. All right, makes sense. You're going to need some resources. All right, yeah, okay, you got to empower it somehow. Something's got to be expended. That, in my mind, makes sense. Then you're going to need the power itself. Okay, well, how do we acquire that? In Legion, we could just pick up random legendary items. Well, players liked getting the item. They didn't like the acquisition method. So what do? Being Legion, when the Legion artifact weapons were out, this was in development. Like, okay, well, how do we solve this? Well, players want a deterministic way, because it's not fun to kill a bunch of bosses and never get the thing that you're looking for. Okay? So, the answer there could have been, well, what if we let players get a little bit of currency and then just buy it? Eventually, that's what happened with the Grateful Offering. The Grateful Offerings were allowed you to do that so that you could just get extra stuff if you wanted. It was a little expensive, and you needed to have 4 anima channels reinforced, but you could eventually do that. And I know on my Paladin I did. That's how I got some of the PvP ones, because I don't PvP. But they were like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to create a 100% drop chance, put it on a different loot table, so that if you kill World Boss X as Y class, you are guaranteed Z memory. And then you go take it to the Rune Carver, along with your resources, your missives, and things, and you go da 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 da, and there it is. You have a legendary item. Okay, but what if happens as games increase, right? As game gets harder, higher item levels are needed. We thought of that. You can upgrade it. Take the same item and get a little bit more resources and another item of that higher level, and whoop, you basically swap them, and it's great. So, the legendary system in this game, I thought was an upgrade from Legion. Base Legion. Not 7.3.5 Legion. That was the best system for legendary borrowed power, for borrowed power. 7.3.5. Because a week of grinding would get you whatever you wanted. And maybe not even a week. I think it might have been like 3 days. Like 3 days of grinding, you can get your 2 best legendaries. Your Class Hall Ring and your, whatever other one was. For me, it was the Spendy Cloak. Oh, the Spendy Cloak. I loved the Spendy Cloak. They even nerfed it during Legion, which was kind of nuts. It went from 25 to 15%, so they're like, alright, Paladins, you can't do too much damage. But that was the entire system of legendaries. So this, I get what they were going for, because in Legion, you got a random chance. So they wanted deterministic rewards. But they also wanted to make sure that players would have some time played and make this, again, a meaningful choice. Eventually, they added the ability to refund legendaries. And while the item you got was destroyed, so while the item you made was destroyed, you could get all the crafting resources back, sans the Shadowghast or Grim Woven item or whatever it was. So I think that was a good choice. And ultimately won in the player's favor. I would have liked to have seen just buy it from an NPC vendor. But then what are crafters going to do? Again, it's how one aspect of the game affects all other aspects of the game. You can't. My experience shouldn't dictate everybody else's experience. This is just, again, my opinion. So I think that's the thing. As we close out this video, I want to say something about Shadowlands, right? I remember being so hyped for Shadowlands. It was the first beta I got into, and I played it and played it and played it and played it and played it. And then it went live, and I played it and played it and played it and played it and played it. And by and large, it was not my favorite expansion. Some of the raids were fun. Some of the Mythic Plus dungeons, I mean, it is what it is. I didn't mind them so much, but I find that I enjoy being done with Mythic Plus dungeons more than I enjoy doing them. Except with the last 2 seasons. The Encrypted and the bounty system. Those were great, because what those did is those let me choose how I'm going to attack this particular problem. And as a Ret Paladin, Are you telling me I can, every time we kill a big monster, I can get a permanent percentage haste increase? Oh, yeah, let's do that. And if I don't make a choice, it goes to verse. Still not a waste. So I enjoyed that, and I want to see more affixes like that going forward. Skittish, probably not fun. Necrotic, probably not fun. Storming, not fun. Quaking, not fun. Tyrannical Fortified, serve a purpose. I get that. But the seasonal fix, it actually creates unique playstyles, which I really like. And I hope to see more of those in the future. Bottom line, Shadowlands. Where do we rate it? Out of 10? 4. Gotta give it a 4. And the reason I give it a 4 is while the raids were strong, I think they were not tested, not tuned at all. So there's some huge, massive nerfs. And when you gotta nerf something 50%, it's a problem. The the design team always did great. Music was great. The legendary system seemed like, yeah, it seemed like you did okay. You're starting to get okay, but you had it nailed with 7.3.5. You had it nailed with Waking Essence. So I gotta give that there. The fact that I really didn't understand the story despite playing it all the way through, right? Like, you know, why is Zoval a robot? You know, what happened there? Who, you know, a Nazrazim, yeah, killed the Arbiter, but why? Are we gonna have that figured out later? I'm sure we are. You know, our boy Pelagos did a fantastic job, and we like Pelagos, nothing against Pelagos. And then the jailer motivations were never really said. It's like, well, I want to escape. Okay, great. Then what? Are you going to destroy the universe? Well, you'll never know. Sylvanas was in there, and Sylvanas... look, I don't like Sylvanas post Wrath of the Lich King. I liked her as a nihilist or nihilist, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I liked her as that, where she was like, the Forsaken are arrows in my quiver, and I will spend them all to kill the Lich King. And then when she throws herself off Ice Crown, and yeah, the Valkyrie like, we'll save you, but you know you gotta work with us, and I think that was a good thing. I just don't know what to do with the Shadowlands. Honestly, I wonder if the Shadowlands will be treated as Warlords of Draenor was. If that we're very harsh to it now, but history will ultimately vindicate it because there's something worse coming down the pipeline. By the light, I hope that doesn't happen, because I can say a couple of things very positively about Warlords of Draenor now that I didn't think I was going to ever be able to say. And I hope that doesn't happen for Shadowlands. So for Shadowlands, I think the answer is, it was a great game, but flawed in its design and execution. The devs who worked on it should be very proud of everything they put together, because this is very, very hard to do. And my opinion does not invalidate the good experiences, one, that I had, because I did absolutely have good experiences, and two, the good experiences that other people had. Well, that's it. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, of course. There's a Patreon, and we will be live on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during Dragonflight, enjoying that stuff. We're also getting back into raiding. Listen, this was a long video, so we're not going to drag it out. May the mount you're farming drop on the first kill, and I'll see you in the next one.